All right, guys, welcome back again. Let's dive in. This is another one of these AI inspirations. Let's see if we can ignite, spark some ideas. And let me know in the comments if this is the type of thing you want to see. Any of these topics today. So the first topic we're getting into is Web3 data ownership, who owns your digital self, AI picks top 5 metaverse projects, and of course, real world physical asset tokenization, the new frontier, right? So these are the main topics that I'm being given by YouTube's AI. Let's dive into the first one, Web3 data ownership. Who owns your digital self? Well, the interesting thing right now is that UGC, user-generated content, is becoming much, much simpler, more streamlined than ever before, of course, by way of artificial intelligence. Some people are running from it, some people are embracing it, and those who are embracing it are, of course, seeing a productivity increase. At least just exploring and learning new things is always something fantastic, right? Now, the illusion of ownership, the beautiful thing, the funny thing actually about digital assets, Web3, is that people believe that, yes, we own everything. It's ours, it's ours, it's ours. It's not like our data from Web2, where they just sell your data to some other advertiser and suddenly you're getting advertisements for trips to the country that you've been talking about lately and things of that nature, But the reality is, this is going to be no different. As a matter of fact, it's going to be even easier. It is even easier to track your data and link it to something that's immutable. And of course, we're talking about these distributed ledgers, right? Of course, these blockchains, whether it be Bitcoin or of course Ethereum or something else like Tau, BitTensor, you name it. If you're linking in your wallet and you're locking in some of your personal credentials, some of your personal data, personal history, your clicks, your likes, your traveling experience, you're using the maps, you're signing in, you're creating a hotspot for people to use so you can earn tokens. There's so many ways that you can participate in these distributed networks and earn rewards. Well, of course, in my mind, this is data that can be sold. Now, the difference is you can monetize the data. It's really difficult for us to monetize our clicks and likes and followers and friend lists through various apps that we've been accustomed to using all these years. But when it comes to digital assets in this newer generation, this distributed ledger technology generation, we can now monetize, and there's an illusion in the sense that we own it. But the data, all we're doing now is more or less giving a check mark and saying, hey, this is actually my data. And yes, you can go ahead and use it however you want. So we'll dive into that a little bit deeper if you guys want to talk about it. I'm super curious to know your comments. Of course, leave one in the section below. Now, AI picking top metaverse plays. This could be very biased, but let's go into some that I think are interesting. Some of these have been around for some years, and I'm curious to see how they're going to be upgrading with artificial intelligence. Maybe some of these NFTs are actually going to be your avatars. I think of things like ALU, that's on the Bitcoin side, Bitcoin ordinals, and Metaverse. I think of also on Bitcoin, I think of what something like Bitmap could be. Maybe it will be, who really knows? But then I also think of Network and Sandbox, and there are so many others, and what I'm feeling in these spaces is that the platforms that are going to excel the most with this metaverse idea are the ones that are geared towards socializing to the maximum. So I think of something like Abstract Chain. I think we might see one of the best metaverse experiences on Abstract because it is focused on user-generated content, live streaming, socialization, and marketing, right? These L2s are all about marketing. So I want to see something like Abstract, a chain like Abstract, bring a really exciting user experience for live streaming, but for the metaverse, and that's tied into socialization, is tied into monetization, is tied into tipping and rewards for your streams and your use case, your value that you're sharing. Because if we go back quickly to the other idea of data ownership, it's all about value. Right now we're transferring value. It's been about transferring value on chains, owning your value, sharing your value. And so as that relates to AI and kind of diving into metaverses more specifically, I think we're going to get so many AI agents in these metaverses. These non-player characters or NPCs are going to be so much more advanced. They're going to drive the stories much further. They're going to feel, it's going to make you want to stay home and enjoy yourself, or put on some goggles and walk around, or sit at a coffee shop. The alternate realities are going to be projecting from your mind much more smoothly, but it doesn't have to necessarily feel like it's a made up thing. It's real life scenarios and experiences with people that may reflect your interests. Because if any of us are using AI already and you're speaking to your AI companion or your agent, yeah, like I use the word companion, There are companionships being formed here. People are learning better, perhaps, how to write music or how to write lyrics, how to speak a language, how to cook, how to dance, how to find a partner. There's just, you name it, how to build software, vibe coding, right? So when you put all of that into a metaverse, I think it's going to be fantastic. Now, as far as what AI is going to do to pick the top metaverse, personally, I wouldn't really rely on that so much, because each AI that's built, all these LLMs, they're developed with somebody else's limitations or opinions and this and that. So I think it's still wise to just, of course, do your own research and figure out what value you see that you can share in these metaverse spaces, and which metaverses allow you to reflect yourself more freely. And finally, let's finish off with real world physical asset tokenization, the new frontier. Guys, drop a comment. Let me know if any of these videos would make sense to make. Dive in if you want to live stream, and of course, join at the link in the description. Okay. So again, we're talking about value, right? Value exchange. That's what this whole generation is going to be about. And it's provable because it's on chain, and we're getting to the point where our productivity is increasing so much. So with real world assets and tokenization, we're going to be tokenizing virtually anything, whether it be a membership like the BLND token is tokenized membership, whether it be some type of artwork, whether it be a deed, whether it be a job. There's so many ways that we can tokenize things to make sure that they are immutable, repeatable, clear to see, and totally unable to be manipulated in any particular way that makes it fraudulent. It's going to be super easy to prove that you have done this. And now what's also interesting about tokenization and AI is that we got to understand that at some point in time, creations are going to be difficult to prove to be made by yourself or myself if they're not confirmed on chain. Because all this user-generated content, all this AI-generated content, mostly specifically AI-generated content, is essentially just going to keep replacing more and more of these influencers, as we call them, content creators, and so forth. So when it comes to real-world asset tokenization, I think it's totally acceptable for us to understand that virtually everything that is digital is going to be tokenized if it's going to be shared. And if we want that to represent us in a particular way, we want to make sure that it's proven that it's ours. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier as well, of what we create being ours, and how are we going to prove it? How are we going to show that this is ours? How are we going to prove it? It's going to be so easy to be fraudulent unless you can verify, because there's so much AI. AI is getting so much more powerful, right? So I do anticipate seeing virtually everything tokenized in the near future. It just makes sense based on the regulations that are passing in so many nations, jurisdictions. So I wouldn't run from it. If anything, I would get better at understanding it on a whole. Drop a comment and let me know if this whole real world physical asset tokenization makes sense to you. If AI and metaverses are a topic that you want to hear about, let me know. And Web3 data ownership, who owns your digital self? You guys let me know what you think, and I can't wait to read your comments. Let's win together.